Mara's small body trembled as she was dragged across the alien arena. Her leg throbbed, a sharp reminder of the crash landing that had brought her to this strange world. The sky above was a deep violet, streaked with swirling clouds that shimmered like molten metal. The ground beneath her boots, well, what passed for boots on this alien surface was soft but uneven, dotted with strange glowing plants that pulsed faintly. It smelled of iron and ozone. Around the arena, the Xiphons chattered in their sharp, musical voices. They towered over her, tall and wiry, with skin that glimmered like polished gemstones. Their eyes were wide and mocking, taking in every detail of Mara's small frame. Some held instruments that looked like a mix of flutes and whips. But she didn't know their purpose. She only knew they had power here, power she needed to survive. "Look at her," one Xiphon cried, hopping from one foot to another in excitement. "A mere human child. Do you think she can survive the dragon?" Another waved a clawed hand, pointing at Mara. "She cannot even stand straight. How weak these humans are. Why do they come to us, thinking they are strong?" Mara's ears burned, but she forced herself to remain calm. She had learned early in life that fear was a signal to think, not panic. Her father had often said, "Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is noticing fear and choosing what to do anyway." And she had to choose. The Xiphons were preparing to test her. But not with words alone. A low rumble vibrated the air as the dragon moved. Mara's eyes widened. But she did not scream. The dragon was enormous, far larger than anything she had seen on Earth. Its scales were iridescent, shifting color from silver to deep blue to a faint golden sheen. Its eyes, bright green with golden flecks, glimmered with intelligence. It did not roar immediately, only watched, tilting its head as if assessing her. The Xiphons laughed, confident that their pet would finish the task they had set. Mara's heart beat fast. But she observed every movement, the dragon's slow, deliberate steps, the way its tail swished lazily, the flick of its long tongue, something about its eyes. She noticed it was curious, not angry. "Throw her closer," a Xiphon demanded. "Let the dragon decide her fate." Two Xiphons grabbed Mara by her arms. She was hurt, yes, but she did not panic. Instead, she allowed herself a moment to study the dragon more carefully. It was large, yes, but its movements were smooth, almost careful. Its head was massive, but it did not lunge at her. It sniffed the air, and Mara realized that it was not hunting. Then she remembered the stories her mother had told her. Not all creatures responded to fear. Some responded to calmness, to gentleness. Mara had to try, even though she was small and injured. As the Xiphons hurled her forward, she spread her arms slightly, not to fight or shield herself, but to appear open and unthreatening. The dragon's eyes followed her, bright green slits widening as it tilted its head. Mara whispered softly, though she knew the Xiphons could not understand. "It's okay. I'm not your enemy. I'm not your enemy." The dragon blinked, slow and deliberate. Mara smiled faintly, her voice gaining strength. "I won't hurt you. I just want to be safe." The Xiphons gasped and whispered among themselves. Mara could hear fragments of their words, alien but filled with disbelief. It is not attacking." "Why not?" one murmured. Mara's mind raced. She had to move carefully. Any sudden gesture might scare the dragon. She lowered herself slightly, keeping her balance even on her injured leg. She noticed the dragon's front claws flex, not in aggression but in attention. It seemed waiting. Carefully, she took a slow step forward, one leg in front of the other. The dragon mirrored her movements in some way, moving its massive head slightly as if following her lead. Mara's confidence grew. She could see now that this was not a test of strength, but of understanding. The Xiphons, seeing her step confidently toward the dragon, started murmuring more loudly. A mixture of laughter and disbelief. A human child? Controlling a dragon? Impossible! Mara ignored them. She focused on the dragon's eyes, noticing the flicker of curiosity and intelligence there. She extended a hand, palm open, toward the dragon. It leaned its head forward, bringing its enormous snout closer to her. The air smelled like ozone and warmth, and she could feel the faint vibration of its breathing. Good! You're listening, she whispered. The dragon's tongue flicked once, almost approvingly, and it lowered its head slightly. Mara took another careful step. The Xiphons froze, their mouths open in astonishment. Mara continued forward, moving slowly, carefully, until she stood close enough to touch the dragon's snout. She rested her small hand against its cool scales. The dragon did not flinch. Instead, it nudged her gently, almost like a greeting. A soft laugh escaped Mara. Hello, big friend. The Xiphons were now silent. Their mocking expressions had faded, replaced by a mixture of shock and curiosity. They had never seen a human child approach the dragon without fear, much less make it calm. Mara's mind worked quickly. She realized that the dragon was intelligent. It could understand gestures, tone, perhaps even intention. She began to use her hands and voice to communicate simple things. A step back, a tilt of her head, a gesture to stay calm. The dragon responded, moving in ways that showed understanding. Do you see this? Mara said quietly to herself. You think I'm weak, but maybe you're the one who doesn't understand. The dragon's tail swished lazily, but it did not strike. Mara carefully moved her hand along its snout, feeling the smooth, cool scales. She smiled. We can be friends, you and I, not enemies, the Xiphons whispered among themselves, their confidence shaken. One even stepped back, a rare gesture of caution for their species. They had assumed humans were simple, weak, and incapable of clever thinking. Mara was proving them wrong in ways they could not have imagined. Mara began to walk slowly backward, guiding the dragon to follow her without fear. The dragon moved with surprising grace, its massive claws making soft impressions in the ground. Mara's injured leg protested, but she ignored it. Focus, she told herself. Focus and patience. The Xiphons continued to watch, murmuring incredulously. Their mocking laughter had vanished. For the first time, they saw that humans had something they did not expect. The ability to think, to observe, and to act with calm intelligence, even in danger. Mara guided the dragon in a circle around the arena, moving carefully, showing that she could direct it without aggression. The dragon responded, tilting its head, swishing its tail, and moving in sync with her small steps. Mara felt a thrill of triumph, not over the dragon, but over the misconception that humans were weak. See? She whispered. We're not so small. Not really. Not in courage, not in understanding. The dragon blinked slowly, and Mara felt a wave of connection. She was not alone. Not in this strange place. Not even against these aliens who thought they were superior. The Xiphons, still watching, began to murmur in hushed tones. What is happening? One asked. How can a human control the dragon? Another shook its head. It should not be possible. Yet it is. And, Mara smiled faintly, feeling a spark of pride. She had survived the initial test. Not by strength, not by force, but by understanding, observation, and patience. She had reached out to the dragon, and the dragon had reached back. Slowly, Mara guided the dragon to a safe spot in the arena, away from the edges where traps might be set. She crouched down, resting her hands on its massive scales. Thank you for listening, she whispered. I promise I won't hurt you. I just want to be safe. The dragon nudged her gently, a soft rumble vibrating through its chest. Mara felt her fear melt into something new. Respect, understanding, and hope. She had faced a challenge that no one thought she could survive. And she had done it with her mind and her heart, not with strength or weapons. The Xiphons stood silent. Their mocking expressions had disappeared completely. For the first time, they were quiet, unsure how to react. A human child had shown them something they did not expect, something they could not mock or dismiss. Mara looked up at them, her small figure framed against the shimmering sky. She did not smile arrogantly. She simply stood tall, proud, and calm. She had survived the first test, and somehow, she knew. This was only the beginning. In that moment, Mara understood something powerful. Humans were not weak. Humans could think, adapt, and connect in ways that no one expected. And sometimes, courage was not about fighting, it was about understanding, patience, and kindness. The dragon shifted its massive head, and Mara felt a warmth that went beyond the physical. It was trust, it was acknowledgement, and it was a beginning. The Xiphons, watching, could only stare. Their laughter had vanished. Their mockery had ended. In its place was something new. Awe, and Mara, injured but unbroken, smiled softly. The arena was no longer just a place of danger. It was a place of possibility. The silence in the arena was thick, broken only by the soft rumble of the dragon's breath. Mara crouched beside the massive creature, her small hand resting gently on its scaled snout. She felt a wave of warmth from it, not hot like fire, but comforting, almost protective. Around them, the Xiphons stood frozen, their usual chatter gone, replaced by something they could not name. Confusion? Curiosity? Perhaps even a touch of fear. Mara slowly straightened, careful not to startle the dragon. She knew she had only survived the first moment of danger. The Xiphons might be silenced for now, but the arena still held challenges. Mara's mind worked quickly. Despite the throb in her leg from the crash landing, she had to understand the environment, the dragon, and the aliens if she wanted to remain safe. The dragon shifted, nudging her gently. Mara took it as an invitation. She had learned long ago that animals, no matter how big or strange, responded to respect. She smiled softly. "Okay, big friend, let's explore a little. Just me and you. No rush." Slowly, she began to move. At first, the dragon stayed still, watching her. Then, with a soft rumble, it stepped forward, its massive feet pressing into the ground so gently it barely made a sound. Mara followed, limping slightly, guiding it with small gestures. She had learned early that gestures and body language often spoke louder than words. The Xiphons watched, their mouths open in disbelief. One of them, smaller than the others, tilted its head. "How?" it whispered. "It obeys her?" Another scoffed, though it was clear the scoff was weak. "No, it cannot be. Humans are fragile, children are weak." Mara ignored them. She had learned that when dealing with beings who underestimated her, the best response was calm confidence. Fear or anger would only strengthen their assumptions. She let the dragon lead her toward the center of the arena, where strange glowing plants formed a kind of maze. The dragon paused at the entrance. Mara studied the pattern of the glowing plants. They pulsed faintly, almost like a rhythm. Mara tilted her head, noticing that the lights seemed to react to movement, not touch. She extended a hand carefully. The plant nearest her glowed brighter, then dimmed as she moved away. The dragon hummed softly. A vibration Mara felt through her hands. It seemed interested in the lights, curious rather than cautious. Mara smiled. "You like puzzles, don't you?" she whispered. The dragon responded with a soft nod of its massive head. Together, they stepped into the maze. Mara moved slowly, pointing gently when she wanted the dragon to turn, pause, or stop. The dragon obeyed without hesitation, as if it understood her every thought. The Xiphons watched, whispering among themselves. Their mockery had vanished completely. "This is impossible," one murmured. A child, controlling a dragon, navigating the maze. Child. Mara noticed the glow of the plants shifting as they moved. She realized that the maze was not just decoration. It responded to motion and intention. She extended a hand, guiding the dragon with gentle gestures. The dragon leaned in, tilting its head as if studying the patterns. Step by step, they moved through the maze. Mara's injured leg protested, but she ignored it. Focus mattered more than discomfort. She noticed that when she stayed calm, the dragon stayed calm. When she hesitated, it paused, waiting for her to signal the next step. The Xiphon's whispers grew louder, filled with disbelief. "How is she doing this?" one asked. "It should attack her. It should ignore her." Mara did not answer. She had learned that silence was often more powerful than words. Her actions spoke louder than any explanation she could give. As they reached the center of the maze, a soft glow filled the area. The plants pulsed in unison, creating a circle of light. Mara stopped and looked around. "Look, big friend. This is beautiful," she whispered. The dragon leaned its head close, and she rested her hand on its snout. The light reflected in its eyes, making them sparkle like emeralds. Suddenly, a low vibration ran through the ground. Mara looked up, noticing small, hovering creatures, like glowing orbs with wings, drifting through the air. The dragon shifted nervously, but Mara held out a hand. "It's okay. They won't hurt us. Just stay calm." The dragon relaxed, and the orbs floated closer. Mara observed them, fascinated. They were curious, studying the pair as much as Mara was studying them. She reached out a finger, and one orb hovered close enough for her to touch. It sparkled, and Mara laughed softly. "Hello there. You're not scary at all," the Xiphons gasped. What is happening?" one asked. "The child. The dragon. They are communicating with everything." Mara smiled faintly. She had realized something important. Understanding and calmness could bridge gaps that brute strength could not. She had reached the dragon's trust, and now they were reaching out to the environment. The Xiphons, despite all their power, had never imagined a human child could accomplish this. Step by step, Mara and the dragon explored the glowing maze together, learning and discovering. Mara noticed patterns in the light, guiding the dragon to move in ways that revealed hidden pathways. The hovering orbs followed, as if curious about this unusual team. The Xiphons whispered urgently among themselves. "It's impossible. How can she do this? It is not strength, not weapons, not power. It is intelligence, observation, empathy." Mara, despite the pain in her leg, continued. She used her gestures and soft words to guide the dragon through a series of steps that revealed a small platform in the center of the maze. On the platform, crystals glowed brighter than anything else, reflecting light like tiny stars. Mara reached out carefully, touching one. It pulsed warmly in her hand. The dragon hummed softly, vibrating with energy. Mara felt a thrill of excitement. Not fear, not panic. Excitement. She had discovered something new, something beautiful, and she was sharing it with the dragon. Suddenly, one of the Xiphons stepped forward, unable to contain its astonishment. This child, she is not afraid. She is remarkable." Mara glanced at them. "Remarkable?" she asked softly. "Perhaps. But I'm not doing this to impress you. I'm doing this to survive and to understand." The Xiphons blinked, unprepared for honesty. Mara's small voice carried more authority than any shout or threat. She had faced them without weapons, without anger, and they had no choice but to listen. The dragon nudged her gently, and Mara smiled. "Yes, big friend. Let's see what else we can discover." Step by step, they moved through the remaining paths of the maze, each turn revealing new wonders. Floating plants that changed colors, crystalline structures that sang faintly when touched, and glowing pools that reflected the sky in impossible ways. Mara learned to guide the dragon with subtle gestures, her injured leg slowing her, but never stopping her. The Xiphons were silent, completely captivated. Their mockery had vanished, replaced by awe. They had expected a simple display of weakness, a human child, easily consumed by a dragon. Instead, they saw intelligence, patience, and empathy. As they reached the edge of the maze, Mara noticed a small rise overlooking the arena. From there, she could see the sky stretched endlessly, and distant mountains shimmered with strange colors. She felt a sense of wonder that went beyond fear or pain. She was small, yes, but she had discovered a vast world of possibilities. "Do you see it, big friend?" she asked the dragon softly. "There's so much out there, so much to learn, and we can face it together." The dragon rumbled in agreement, leaning close. Mara felt the vibration through her hands, a comforting rhythm that steadied her heart. She knew that the Xiphons had underestimated her, underestimated humans, and underestimated the power of calm, courage, and intelligence. The Xiphons, still watching, whispered among themselves, How can a human be so clever?" one asked. "So patient. So kind?" Mara smiled faintly, her heart swelling with quiet pride. She had survived the dragon's initial test, turned fear into trust, and shown the Xiphons that humans were capable of far more than they imagined. As the sun, or whatever passed for a sun here, began to dip in the alien sky, Mara sat beside the dragon, resting her injured leg. She felt tired but exhilarated. The arena was no longer a place of fear. It was a place of learning, discovery, and connection. Mara understood something powerful. Strength was not always measured in size or weapons. Sometimes, the greatest strength lay in observation, patience, and empathy. Sometimes, it lay in connecting with others, even those who seemed far larger or stronger than oneself. The dragon nudged her gently, as if sensing her thoughts. Mara laughed softly. "Yes, we understand each other, don't we?" Around them, the Xiphons remained silent. They had expected fear, chaos, and submission. Instead, they saw intelligence, calm, and a bond that no mockery could break. Mara looked up at the sky, feeling a spark of hope. She was small, yes, but she had already achieved something incredible. The first part of her journey was over, and she had survived. But more importantly, she had discovered a truth the Xiphons would never forget. Humans were clever, adaptable, and capable of wonders, even in the face of fear. And the dragon, massive and powerful, was her companion. Together, they could face whatever challenges came next. For the first time, Mara felt that the arena was not a prison, but a place of potential, and she was ready to explore it, step by step, with courage, intelligence, and heart. The next morning, the alien sky glimmered with a soft golden hue. Unlike anything Mara had seen on Earth, the light fell across the arena, illuminating the maze of glowing plants and crystalline structures. The Xiphons, though still silent from the day before, were gathering along the edges of the arena. Their eyes flicked between Mara and the dragon. A mixture of disbelief and curiosity etched across their shimmering faces. Mara stretched carefully, testing her injured leg. It ached, but the pain was manageable. She looked down at the dragon, whose massive head leaned toward her, eyes glinting with warmth and intelligence. "Ready for another day?" she whispered softly. The dragon gave a low rumble, almost like a purr, and Mara smiled. Together, they were more than a human and a creature. They were a team. The Xiphons had prepared something new. From the far end of the arena, a set of platforms began to rise slowly from the ground. Each platform floated a few meters above the glowing maze, forming a path across the arena. It was clear they wanted to challenge her again, testing her ability to navigate the space. But this time, the challenge was designed to impress the audience, not destroy her. Mara studied the platforms carefully. They were unevenly spaced, some close together, some farther apart. The dragon's massive size made jumping between them impossible. But Mara had an idea. She crouched low, placing her hands on the dragon's smooth scales. "We'll do it together," she whispered. "I'll guide you, and you'll follow." Step by step, the dragon shifted its weight, muscles rippling beneath its scales. Mara felt the subtle vibration through her hands. It was as if the dragon was asking, "Are you sure?" Mara nodded confidently. "I'm sure. We can do this." With careful steps, she climbed onto the dragon's back, her small hands gripping its ridged scales. The dragon's movements were careful at first, testing the stability of each step. Mara leaned forward, guiding it with gentle taps and shifts of weight. The dragon seemed to understand. Stepping lightly across the arena floor toward the first platform, the Xiphons gasped. They had expected the dragon to balk or stumble, but it moved with surprising agility, its massive body flowing across the terrain like water over rocks. Mara's confidence grew. She leaned to the left, and the dragon adjusted its path. She leaned forward, and the dragon stepped carefully, its claws gripping the glowing ground. "Good, big friend," Mara whispered. "Just like that. Keep going." Step by step, they approached the first floating platform. Mara studied it carefully. It hovered a meter above the ground, shimmering slightly in the alien light. She shifted her weight, signaling the dragon to pause. "We need to think," she said softly, "slow and steady. We don't rush." The dragon lowered its massive head, watching her intently. Mara smiled. "I know it looks impossible, but it's not. We just have to work together." The dragon gave a soft rumble and moved toward the platform. Mara felt the vibration under her hands as it tested the edges, finding the safest place to step. Then, with a careful push of its powerful legs, it lifted itself just enough to place one claw on the floating platform. Mara held her breath as the platform rocked slightly, but held steady. "Yes, you did it," she whispered. The dragon's tail swished, steadying itself. And Mara felt the subtle movement through her hands. They had crossed the first platform together. The Xiphons were silent, unable to believe what they were seeing. Their previous assumptions that humans were weak, that children were fragile, that dragons were uncontrollable, were crumbling before their eyes. Mara guided the dragon to the next platform, using soft words and gentle gestures. The dragon stepped lightly, its massive body moving with unexpected grace. Mara's small hands pressed against its scales. Feeling each subtle movement, she leaned left, leaned right, signaled forward, each motion translated instantly into careful steps by the dragon. Step by step, they moved across the arena, platforms rising and lowering slightly as they passed. The dragon's tail swished carefully to balance, and Mara shifted her weight in harmony. The glowing plants below pulsed in response to their movement, creating a dazzling display of lights that made the arena shimmer like a sea of stars. The Xiphons whispered urgently among themselves. How is she doing this?" one asked. "She is not strong, not armed, and yet, she controls the dragon perfectly." Mara ignored them, focusing entirely on the task. Each platform brought new challenges. Some tilted slightly, some hovered farther apart than expected, and some glowed with a faint, shifting pattern that made it difficult to judge the edges. Mara's heart pounded with excitement and concentration. She leaned carefully, shifted her weight, and guided the dragon with a combination of intuition and observation. Halfway across, Mara noticed a small gap between platforms. It was too wide for the dragon to step normally. She paused, thinking quickly. "We can do this," she whispered. Then she realized the dragon's body could use its tail as a counterbalance. Mara leaned to the side, pressing lightly against the dragon's ridge, signaling it to lift its front legs and stretch across the gap. The dragon hesitated for a moment, testing the space. Mara held her breath. Then, slowly and carefully, it stretched forward, tail swishing to maintain balance. Step by step, it moved across the gap, and Mara guided it with small, confident shifts of weight. Finally, both front claws touched the next platform, then the back claws followed. They had crossed. Mara exhaled, smiling. "Good job. You did it," the Xiphons whispered in astonishment. Impossible. She guided it. Across. The gap. A child. Mara felt a swell of quiet pride. She had turned fear into opportunity. She had turned the dragon's strength into an advantage. The alien's mocking had lost all power because she had shown intelligence, patience, and creativity. The final platforms rose higher, shimmering more brightly in the alien light. Mara studied them carefully. The dragon's massive body cast shadows that danced across the glowing ground. Mara realized that the final challenge was not just physical but mental. She had to anticipate the dragon's movements and the shifting platform's changes. Step carefully, big friend, she whispered. We can do it. One at a time. We've done this before. We can do it again. The dragon leaned slightly, responding to her tone. Mara adjusted her weight, signaling forward. The dragon moved, front legs stretching, claws gripping the shifting platform. Mara felt every subtle vibration, every tiny shift in balance. She guided it slowly, step by step, forward. The Xiphons leaned closer, whispers growing louder. She is remarkable, one said. How can a human, a child, do this? She thinks. She adapts. She guides. Mara ignored them. She focused entirely on the dragon, on the platforms, and on her own balance. Step by step, inch by inch, they moved across the final stretch. The dragon's massive tail swayed for balance, and Mara leaned in rhythm, signaling each movement. Finally, they reached the last platform, standing tall, despite the dragon's enormous size. Mara's small hands rested on its scales, and she smiled. We did it, she whispered softly. The dragon nudged her gently, rumbled in satisfaction, and lowered its massive head toward her in a gesture of trust. The Xiphons were silent. Their mouths hung open. Disbelief etched across every face. They had expected weakness, fear, and failure. Instead, they had witnessed intelligence, empathy, and teamwork between a human child and a creature they considered powerful beyond control. Mara felt a thrill, not of triumph over others, but of discovery. She had faced a challenge that seemed impossible and had succeeded through observation, patience, and connection. She looked down at the glowing arena floor, the shifting platforms, and the curious hovering lights. This was not just survival, it was learning, understanding, and growing. The dragon nudged her again, and Mara laughed softly. Yes, we understand each other, don't we? We can do amazing things together. She looked at the Xiphons, who remained frozen in awe. She did not need to shout or demand respect. Her actions had spoken louder than any words could. A human child, injured and small, had guided a massive dragon across impossible obstacles. That alone silenced every mocking voice. Mara's heart swelled with quiet pride. She had discovered something powerful. Humans were clever, adaptable, and capable of understanding and influencing creatures far stronger than themselves. And she had done it without anger, without force, and without cruelty. The Xiphons shifted, whispering among themselves, trying to process what they had seen. We underestimated them, one said. We thought humans were fragile, weak, small. But this child, she shows a strength we cannot measure, in muscle or claws. Mara smiled faintly. She did not gloat. She had no need to. Her strength was not in proving the Xiphons wrong, it was in proving to herself what humans could do. And now, she had a companion. A dragon who understood and trusted her. Together, they could face whatever challenges awaited. As the golden light of the alien sky bathed the arena, Mara climbed down from the dragon's back. She rested her hand on its massive snout. We've done well today, she whispered. Tomorrow will be another adventure. The dragon rumbled softly, nudging her gently as if agreeing. Mara knew that this was only the beginning. The Xiphons had been silenced by her ingenuity and patience. But the real journey of understanding, learning, and discovery was just beginning. For the first time since the crash, Mara felt a deep sense of hope. She was small, yes, but she had already accomplished what no one expected. She had formed a bond with a creature the Xiphons thought unstoppable. She had guided it across impossible challenges, and she had done it all with intelligence, courage, and heart. The arena, once a place of fear and mockery, was now a place of potential. Mara could see the possibilities in the glowing plants, the shifting platforms, and the curious lights. She knew that with patience and cleverness, humans could achieve far more than anyone, including the Xiphons, ever imagined. And beside her, the dragon's massive eyes glimmered with understanding. Together, they had turned fear into trust, danger into discovery, and mockery into awe. Mara rested her hand on the dragon one last time, feeling its warmth and steady breathing. She whispered softly, "We're ready for whatever comes next." Together, the Xiphons, still silent, had no words to respond. Their mockery had ended, replaced by awe, wonder, and a new understanding. A human child had shown them something incredible. That strength was not always measured in size or weapons, but in intelligence, courage, and heart. And in that moment, Mara knew that humans, though small and underestimated, could achieve the impossible. The sun, or whatever served as a sun on this alien world, rose slowly, bathing the arena in a warm, golden glow. The glowing plants, which had pulsed faintly through the night, now shimmered brightly, casting long, dancing shadows across the uneven terrain. Mara stood at the edge of the arena, her small hand brushing against the dragon's smooth, massive scales. Its eyes, bright and intelligent, followed every movement she made. Mara had learned much in the past days. She had discovered the dragon's intelligence, patience, and curiosity. She had guided it across impossible platforms and through glowing mazes, gaining its trust and forming a bond no one had expected. The Xiphons, who had once mocked her as weak, were now silent observers, their previous arrogance replaced with cautious curiosity. Today, Mara could sense, would be different. The Xiphons had gathered more of their floating platforms and crystalline puzzles, but this time, the setup was not meant to harm her. It was designed to test ingenuity, creativity, and collaboration. Mara smiled faintly. She was ready. She climbed onto the dragon's back, careful to distribute her weight evenly. The dragon shifted slightly under her hands, rumbling softly as if asking, "Are you ready?" Mara whispered, "Yes, big friend. We've done this before. We can do it again." The dragon responded with a low, steady rumble, and together, they stepped forward into the arena. The Xiphons watched intently. One muttered, "It cannot be. A human child. Controlling. Commanding." Another whispered, "She does not shout. She does not demand. She guides." Their astonishment was clear. This child, small and injured, had managed what none of their strongest could do: earn the dragon's trust and use intelligence instead of brute force. Mara studied the arena. The floating platforms were arranged in a large circle, some higher than others, some moving slightly in the air. In the center, a group of glowing crystals pulsed rhythmically, casting bright reflections across the platforms. The goal was clear: reach the center, touch the crystals, and complete the challenge. Mara leaned forward, her hands resting gently on the dragon's scales. "We go together," she whispered, step by step, careful and steady. The dragon shifted its massive legs, flexing its claws, ready to respond to her guidance. The first platform hovered a meter above the ground. Mara directed the dragon with subtle shifts of weight and gentle nudges, guiding it onto the platform. The dragon's tail swayed for balance, and Mara adjusted her posture accordingly. The platform rocked slightly, but the dragon remained steady. Mara felt the vibrations through her hands, learning each subtle movement. Step by step, they moved from platform to platform. Some required the dragon to stretch forward, others to balance carefully with its tail. Mara whispered encouragement, spoke to the dragon softly, and guided it with patience and observation. Each successful step increased her confidence and deepened their bond. The Xiphons watched in awe. Their whispers had grown to murmurs of disbelief. "She is clever beyond measure," one said. "It is not strength or weapons that guide her. It is understanding, connection, thought." Mara ignored them, focusing entirely on the dragon and the floating platforms. They reached a section where the platforms moved slightly up and down in gentle waves. Mara studied the timing carefully. "We move together, big friend," she whispered. "Wait. Then step." She leaned subtly, signaling the dragon to lift a front leg and place it on the first moving platform. It responded instantly, shifting its massive weight carefully, balancing with its tail as it had learned to do. Mara smiled softly. "Good job. Just like that. Keep going." Together, they crossed the moving section, each step precise, measured, and controlled. Next came a section with glowing crystals suspended in the air, slightly out of reach. Mara thought quickly. She leaned to the dragon's side, pressing lightly against its ridge. "We reach together," she whispered. The dragon lifted its massive front legs, stretching carefully, and Mara balanced herself, extending a small hand toward the crystals. One by one, she touched them, feeling a warm pulse of energy as the crystals glowed brighter. The Xiphons were completely silent. They had expected failure, chaos, and perhaps fear. Instead, they saw precision, intelligence, and collaboration. A human child had turned an impossible challenge into a graceful display of ingenuity. Step by step, Mara and the dragon moved through the final stretch of platforms. Each one tested balance, timing, and careful observation. Mara's small voice, gentle words, and careful guidance allowed the dragon to navigate the arena flawlessly. They reached the center, where the largest cluster of glowing crystals awaited. Mara carefully climbed onto the dragon's back one final time, positioning herself perfectly. She extended both hands, touching the largest crystal. A wave of light spread outward, illuminating the arena with a brilliant glow. The dragon rumbled deeply, vibrating through the ground, and Mara felt the energy pulse through her hands. The Xiphons gasped audibly. Their previous arrogance, their mocking laughter, their disbelief all vanished completely. They had witnessed something beyond their expectations. A small human, injured and underestimated, guiding a massive creature to complete an impossible challenge without anger, without force, and without fear. Mara looked down at the dragon, smiling softly. "We did it, big friend. Together." The dragon leaned its massive head toward her, nudging her gently, as if acknowledging the accomplishment. Mara felt warmth and connection, realizing that the dragon was not just a companion but a partner, equal in understanding and trust. Slowly, she climbed down from the dragon, resting her small hand on its massive snout. She looked up at the Xiphons, who were still silent. Their expressions had shifted from disbelief to awe, and for the first time, Mara felt that they truly saw humans as more than weak, small, or fragile. She spoke softly, her voice carrying a quiet authority. "We are not strong because of size or weapons. We are strong because we think, observe, and connect. We are strong because we do not give up and because we treat others with understanding, even when they seem dangerous." The Xiphons remained silent, their glowing eyes reflecting wonder and surprise. Mara's words had not been a threat, but a truth. Her actions had already proven it. A human child, small and injured, had guided a dragon across impossible obstacles, shown intelligence, patience, and empathy, and silenced mocking voices not with force, but with example. Mara smiled faintly, feeling a sense of quiet pride. She had faced fear and danger, and had turned them into opportunity. She had proven not only to the Xiphons but to herself that humans were clever, adaptable, and capable of extraordinary things. The dragon nudged her again, rumbling softly. Mara rested her hand on its scales, feeling the subtle vibrations. "We've learned a lot, haven't we?" she whispered. "And there's still more to discover." The Xiphons, observing, began to murmur among themselves. "We underestimated them," one said. "We thought humans were fragile, small, and yet they think, adapt, understand." Mara turned toward them, her gaze calm and unwavering. "Intelligence, courage, and understanding are stronger than brute force," she said softly. "And they do not depend on size or age. They depend on heart, mind, and the willingness to try, even when everything seems impossible." For a long moment, the arena was completely silent. The Xiphons had nothing to say, nothing to mock. They had been humbled, not by strength or domination, but by ingenuity, patience, and kindness. Mara had not fought them. She had not attacked. She had only observed, guided, and connected. And that had been more powerful than anything they could imagine. Mara glanced at the dragon, smiling. She knew that together, they could face whatever the galaxy held. She had learned its patterns, its moods, and its intelligence. They had formed a bond that no force could break, a partnership built on trust and understanding. The Xiphons, watching, began to shift. Some stepped back, others tilted their heads, and finally, one spoke softly. We misjudged humans. We thought them weak. But this child, she shows us a new way to see, to understand." Mara nodded slightly. "You can learn from humans," she said softly. "Not by force, not by mocking, but by observing, listening, and understanding. That is where strength truly lies." The Xiphons were quiet again, this time in thought rather than disbelief. Mara knew that their perception of humans had changed forever. She had done more than survive a challenge. She had shown what humans could accomplish. And she had done it without anger, violence, or fear. She looked at the glowing arena one last time, feeling a wave of quiet satisfaction. The platforms, the crystals, the hovering lights, they were no longer obstacles. They were symbols of potential, of learning, and of connection. Mara had faced them all, guided a massive dragon, and silenced mocking voices not with force, but with courage, intelligence, and heart. The dragon nudged her once more, a soft, warm vibration that Mara felt deep in her chest. She rested her hand on its snout, whispering, "We're ready for whatever comes next." Together, the Xiphons remained silent, humbled, and awed. Mara had shown them that strength was not always measured in size or weapons. Sometimes, it was measured in observation, patience, empathy, and courage. And in that moment, the arena was filled not with fear, but with respect and hope. Mara smiled faintly, her small hand still resting on the dragon's massive scales. She had faced mockery, fear, and impossible challenges, and she had turned each into an opportunity. Together, she and the dragon had shown what humans were capable of. And she knew, deep down, that this was only the beginning. As the golden light of the alien sky bathed the arena, Mara took a deep breath, feeling calm, strong, and ready. She had discovered the power of connection, the strength of intelligence, and the value of courage. The dragon, her companion and partner, rumbled softly in agreement. In that moment, Mara knew something extraordinary. Humans, though small and underestimated, could achieve the impossible. They could connect, understand, and inspire. And sometimes, that was far more powerful than any weapon or display of strength. The Xiphons, still watching, had no words to respond. Their mocking voices had ended, replaced by awe, reflection, and a new understanding. Mara had taught them something they would never forget. That strength could come in the form of courage, intelligence, and heart, and that even the smallest human could make the impossible possible. Mara stood tall, The dragon's massive head bowed slightly in acknowledgement, and she whispered softly, "We did it, together." And for the first time since the crash, Mara felt completely, unshakably at home. Even on this alien world, she had survived, she had learned, and she had inspired. And now, nothing seemed impossible, not for her, not for humans, and not for the dragon who trusted her completely.